there, and welcome to What Matters, a podcast that looks inward at unique experiences, upward for divine direction, and outward at God's activity in our world. I'm Michelle Funk, your host. I'm so glad you're here. Be sure to subscribe and share and comment and do all these things to make this podcast happen for you and for others. We're so glad you're joining us today, and you're in for a treat. I get to introduce you to Michelle Kirby, a great name, by the way. Michelle and I have known each other for a long time, and so we can poke fun at the fact that we both have the same name and spell it correctly. Thank you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, welcome, Michelle. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I've been looking forward to it.
Good, good, good. I'll let you just introduce yourself, and then we're going to have a great conversation ahead.
Great. As you said, my name is Michelle Kirby, and I have worked here at the church for about 19 years, been a member for about 21. I am a mother of two, a grandmother of one, and that's kind of the quick profile. How about that?
Perfect. That is perfect. So we've known each other for a while.
Yes.
We have a saying around here at church that the only constant is change. And so I just thought we might talk about change because to me, change is good,
Mhm.
but change is hard. And
Agreed.
yeah, and I, just thought about change as something that you and I have both experienced personally in the work environment, and everybody experiences in one way, shape, or form. So what do you think about change? How do we do this thing called change?
I think people have a love-hate relationship with change
Seriously. Yeah.
because, sometimes in our life we're saying, I just wish things would change. And other times when they're changing, we're saying, why can't they stay the same?
Yeah.
We're kind of, back and forth about it. And of course, it's all situational, whatever situation we're in.
Right.
We either embrace it or we resist it.
Yes. Yeah.
So, it's a big topic, and I know we don't have all day, so we'll
I
try to
know.
keep it
I
concise.
know. So personally, you probably experienced change, yes?
Absolutely.
Have you lately?
I think Michelle's referring to some changes that are happening here at our church. And again, as you and I both know, we've been here a long time. There have been a number of changes, but this is probably the largest change
Yeah.
that we've had. And we're talking about a staff reorganization. And, part of what happens when we hear this word change, I think immediately we all sort of go to what's going to happen to me? What about me?
Yeah.
And that's a very natural thing, and we shouldn't feel guilty about it. And that's definitely the first place I went to. What does this mean for me? What does it mean? My husband works here as well. What does it mean for him? What does it mean for us? But I had to step back and say, why is this happening? And what does it mean for the church?
Yeah.
And know that I'm a tiny part of that. Um, I'm not an insignificant part, but I am a tiny part of the bigger piece of that. And so I wanted to keep that into perspective. But it didn't mean that I didn't have strong feelings about it.
Mm.
And like we were saying earlier, um, my feelings were all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
Excited, sad, mourning. I've worked in the same department for 19 years. I worked with you for all of those time, all those years.
Right.
Made some great friendships, had great time teaching classes and doing things like that. And now I'm being shifted out of that. And it's not that I'm not excited about what's to come, I am, but there's also a sadness and, oh, things aren't going to be the same.
Right.
But I think we don't want them to always be the same. That means there's no growth. That's not healthy because we don't want our children to stay the same. We don't want them to stay the same age, although our hearts might want them to stay age 3 forever. We know that that's not healthy. And so there's lots of mixed emotions about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, looking at the big picture helps with that.
Mm.
And we'll talk maybe a little bit more, even like, so what helps, us navigate this thing called change. But
Mhm.
you're right. I think for me too, the staff reorg, when you hear reorg, you think, what? What does that mean? Who's going where? What's going to happen to me? What
Right.
what will be new and different? And yet, gosh, over the past 18 months? I mean, we have just seen change happening all around us anyway.
That's right.
And so it is a necessary thing to do. It is.
It is.
So
And
I'm
sometimes
trying to help myself believe that.
and sometimes we have time to prepare. Like we've
Mhm.
been hearing about the staff change for
Right.
quite a while. COVID change, we had no time to prepare.
Right.
That was kind of on a dime. I remember just, staff-wise, hearing announcements or watching the news at night, things were changing not only daily, almost by the hour.
Yeah.
And, one of the great feats that we pulled off in our department that, you and I and the rest of our team were so proud of is to get everything online in about a week's time.
Right.
And we're talking about thousands, literally thousands of people
Yeah.
adjusting to being online.
Right.
And that change was quick, it was swift, but we could look back and go, wow, we really gained a lot by that.
Right.
And wasn't easy,
Hmm.
but it was positive too.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So also, there's change all around us as well, like with family and
Yes,
things happening in our lives and all of those things as well. You got a little bit of that going on too?
absolutely. This summer, my dear, beautiful, wonderful, perfect in every way granddaughter graduated from high school, and she'll be going off to college the end of August in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that's a big change for us. My daughter, I know, is excited about it. She's proud of her daughter. But I remember being in that spot, a number of years ago, watching my daughter graduate or watching my son graduate. And while you're so proud of them, inside you're thinking, I'm not quite finished with this job. I don't want to be released from this job. And I remember I felt that so strongly. But as you and I both know, we're not released from the job.
Right.
We're never
We're
released
never
from the
set free.
job.
No, I mean, it's a lifelong, experience. Yeah.
It is. And and I remember at graduation watching my granddaughter cross the stage, and I was really proud of her. I didn't have the tears and the emotion like I had when my kids were doing it
Yeah.
until I looked right in front of me and saw my daughter, and I thought, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. You got her across the stage." And
Oh, neat.
it was just such a good feeling, but it really means definite change. And that's something that I think when the first day you have your baby, this is gonna be 18 years of change before you get them to that point, and that's just the beginning of their life.
Yeah.
There's more change to come.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. Change is both and. It's a
Mhm.
huge celebration, and at the same time, it's like a deep, almost loss.
Right.
You've
That's
got
right.
you've got joy on one hand and a little bit of grief on the
Mhm.
other, or maybe both and. It really
Right.
is. Yeah,
And both are okay.
yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't feel badly that you're feeling grief.
Right.
Because things are going to be different. I mean, I remember driving my daughter up to KU and coming home and crying for the next 8 hours.
Yeah,
I was happy for her and celebrated that, but it just broke my heart at the same time.
yeah.
And you have to recognize those feelings and be okay with them
Right,
and live in that space sometimes. We should mourn. It helps get us to that next place.
right.
And I didn't do it in front of her, but I also let her know it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm just fine without you here," she knew.
Yeah,
She knew I was sad, and I know that she'll be experiencing this with her daughter too,
right,
and that it's okay to feel sad and to kind of live with that for a while, but don't let that take over,
right.
and I think part of what we look at is I read some of the articles about change as I was preparing for
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
and one of the articles talked about drama and what's real versus what's kind of imagined in your mind. The grief part is real.
yeah.
That's not a figment of your imagination. It's real. And you're feeling that. You're thinking about, from our perspective as a mom, you're thinking of 18 years of all those things that have happened and what's going to change. Will my daughter still need me? And all of that. But I think when we sit back if I were advising you instead of looking at my feelings, "Oh, Michelle, your sons are still gonna need you. They're still gonna come to you for things." And, it's easier to see it when you take yourself out of the situation, but it's hard when you're living through it yourself.
Yeah. So don't get caught up in the drama.
Right. Don't get caught up in it
Yeah,
because um it, the drama part isn't helpful. It doesn't push you down the field. It's not helpful for the person who's doing it and the person who's receiving the trauma.
yeah.
Neither one is helpful.
Right,
And so it's good to really kind of cut through and say, well, what's real here? Well, my grief is real, but so is my joy and so is my celebration.
right.
And these things are really what I want to focus on and live in the sadness, but also live in the celebration, not to neglect that
Yeah,
and not all the other hysterics, especially there's going to be feelings from an 18-year-old who's packing up to go away.
right.
And
Yeah.
so her mom's gotta, take on that maturity and handle that and not to live into the drama with her, not to get engaged in that.
Right.
So
Right.
we're always navigating.
I did this perfectly, of course, when I went to college. No, I did not. I got so caught up in the drama. This was before cell phones, right? This was
Mm,
when you had to go to a payphone to call home, and I would
right.
call home crying. I'm so homesick. I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to make it. I mean, oh, my poor mother had to listen to these phone calls. I'm just going to die here. I'm just going to die. And then all of a
Oh,
sudden, I started to meet some people,
yeah.
started to get active and involved and engaged in school and what was going on. And so I quit calling home. And so then my mom writes a letter. Michelle, did you die? Or have you made it? I
Have
haven't
you
heard
made
from you. Could you please let me know? So yeah, don't live into the drama, people.
Well,
Even
it's
though I did
yeah, and
fully.
it's what you're feeling in the moment, but just to have, maybe a mom's voice or maybe to
Yeah,
have someone else's voice to kinda reel you back in
exactly. Yeah.
because it doesn't feel good to be out of control,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously, so just
Yeah.
to reel us back in.
So what else helps us navigate change?
I think also just, embracing the unknown. As I mentioned, I'm going into a new position,
Hmm.
and I had a meeting yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I heard a lot of language that I'm not familiar with,
Yeah.
and there are going to be just new ways of doing things that I have no experience in.
Yeah.
And so my feelings can go from feeling inadequate, from feeling overwhelmed, from feeling incompetent to just recognize that and say, wait a minute, though. There's a vote of confidence in putting me in this role. And I've been doing some of these things. And so there are some new things I need to learn and to be okay with that, to know that I'm going to have a learning curve.
Mhm.
And there's going to be times that I'm going to not get it right. And I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and keep going.
Yeah.
So just to kind of live in that uncertainness or that edginess of the moment of this is an unknown.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the difficulty in change is the unknown part.
Mhm.
If we knew what was coming, like, oh, like, my son got married in April. I'm going to get married. That's going to be a change. But wow, it's going to be a great change. And I'm
Yeah.
so looking forward to it. And there's some unknown, obviously, in getting married, but that's a different type of change than going into a new position that you've never done before,
Right.
that we've never had at the church
Right.
that
Yeah.
no one's ever laid an example down for me to watch.
Yeah.
So it's a learning curve. And, we have lots of those. I mean, for my granddaughter, it'd be a learning curve for her. Live away from home in a different city
Right.
to figure those things out, to negotiate and to navigate through homesickness
Yeah.
in a new place and,
Yeah.
and all of that. But just to, give yourself time to adapt
Mhm.
and to kind of jump in with both feet to learn to say, okay, well, I don't know this and I'm going to learn about it. And it's okay if I don't get it right the first time because I'm not going to be a master right off the bat. I'm just not going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So embrace and don't shut down.
right.
Instead, remain open,
Hmm.
which takes a little bit of effort and some intention, but is doable. Just, I think, even as we consider our attitudes.
Right. Great humility.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right. You have to go in it with humility, knowing I'm not an expert in this.
Yeah.
I don't feel that I'm an expert in discipleship, but I have 19 years of experience. And so I
Right.
felt really comfortable there.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to embrace that really.
Mhm.
Because if we want to succeed, we have to kind of step out of our comfort zone and
Mhm.
take on some new things.
Mhm.
And to know that we have to, it sounds oxymoron, but we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it helps me when I look back at the times that I have, for some reason, by the grace of God, just remained open for, well, like we mentioned, example of the past year with COVID. Look at all we learned
Hmm.
in finding new ways to remain connected with one another and
Yes.
to still be able to be involved in ministry.
Hmm.
And we were able to learn that. And at first it was like a shutting down of, because the world was shutting down. So it could have been, I'm just going to stay here, shut down and not even try. And so when I look back and say, oh, I learned then, perhaps I can learn now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And even through that, and I'm glad you brought up God. I mean, we are at a church, right? We need to talk about him. Um, that just undergirds everything.
Yeah.
And so as I've been going through the process of thinking about new positions and leaving the old and going into the new and into an unfamiliar place, some of the scriptures, there was one in particular that I wanted to share today that I just really leaned into. It was from Joshua. And it says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go."
Mhm.
And I thought, one of the things that I was thinking about as I was considering a new position was, but my spiritual gifts and my giftedness is over here, and I was just reminded by God, but Michelle, I gave you these gifts too.
Yeah.
I'm the same God, and I'm going to be with you in this place as I was in this place.
Yeah.
And so I don't go anywhere where He is not. And He's with me, whatever I do, wherever I go. And that's such huge comfort. And I love that part that says, be courageous because I'm going to learn new things and step in a place where I don't know that's unfamiliar. But also, don't be discouraged
Yeah.
because I can learn. He's going to equip me. He's not going to take me to a place that He's not calling me to. And
Mhm.
so God doesn't set us up for failure, He sets us up for success. And so that is where we draw strength and we draw comfort knowing that He's with us. He's going ahead of us, He's behind us, He's beside us, He's in us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that way we can say, all right, I'm in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jump in with both feet.
Yeah. I love that. That's good. All right. What else? What else helps us?
What else?
What else we know? What else? What other changes are in store?
Oh no, more? I don't know. Um, a couple of the things that I was thinking of as I was kind of doing my research for this, I started thinking about, going back more, even, before my daughter graduating or my son graduating, back when I had my children.
Yeah.
That's a huge change in your life. And my daughter was born in August. And that and I think September are the busiest month for babies to be born.
Is that right?
As we're heading into the summertime
Uh-huh.
right now,
Yeah.
there'll be lots of new babies being born.
Yeah.
And what a tremendous change that brings in your life.
Yeah.
I was a somewhat young mother. I mean, young by today's standards for sure.
Mhm.
Not necessarily that young. I think I was 23, but I had never been around babies. I didn't really know anything about being a mom myself, obviously. And I remember being fearful and overjoyed and overwhelmed and, all those sleepless nights thinking I'm the only person up right now in the whole world.
That's right. Yeah.
And yet the joy that you experienced and you didn't know how huge your heart would expand. And then I had a son and I thought, well, how am I ever going to love him as much as I love her? And then lo and behold, my heart expanded again.
Yeah.
But all the change that happened with me, knowing that there were parts of me that had been, unexplored. I didn't know what it would be like to be a mother
Yeah.
and how what an enriching, glorious part of my life that's been. And then now to be a grandmother has just expanded that role even more. What a huge change. And I'm guessing, everyone within the realm of who's listening to this podcast right now, there's either having babies, know someone who's having babies, maybe experiencing grandchildren coming in, and all the changes that that brings and the joy that that brings. But again, our change is not always sad and negative. Sometimes it's
Right.
bring it on. I
Right.
mean, I know so many of my friends, my contemporaries, who were just so thrilled about becoming grandparents for the first time. They're like, "It's about time. Bring it on. Let's have those grandbabies."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a great change.
Yeah. And again, you're right. God is with you through it all. And it
Mhm.
makes me think of, the clay that we can be molded
Yeah.
and then kind of remolded a little bit,
Yeah.
with every new thing that comes our way. And that's the remarkable part of being a human being.
Right.
We are capable of change and adapting and learning. I mean, again, just looking back over the past year and a half or so, I'm just so grateful for being able to learn something new.
Mhm. That's right.
'Cause
And I think that that's part of God's great design is that
yeah,
we do have to always be about learning, and we are always changing. I mean, even our bodies are changing.
Yeah.
I forget how
Hey,
many
hey, now wait a minute there.
and
Wait a
sometimes
minute.
those changes.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about
I'm
that.
thinking more like on the molecular level, always changing, but you're right, another part of change of getting older. Woohoo.
I know.
Um, but I don't think God created us. I mean, we're born and we grow and grow and grow and grow. That's an ever evolving
Yeah,
person.
right.
We don't start something and master it on the first day.
Yeah,
It's part of the process.
yeah, yeah,
And that's a good thing.
yeah,
It's a good thing.
yeah.
How boring life would be if you stepped into something and you knew all the information. I mean, I think about you even, like women's ministry, you've been doing this for years.
Mhm.
Think about the changes and the
I know.
evolutions. And I mean, you haven't even been doing the video podcast for very
Right.
long.
I know.
That's just another new way to do women's ministry.
Yeah, yeah, and just being able to say, "Okay, I'm gonna jump in, I'm gonna try my best, I'm gonna follow all the expertise and everything, and learn as I go, and then
Mhm.
just trust that, it's I feel like anytime that we try to engage in God's activity in the world, that he is going to lead the way and something good is going to come from it. It very well may be, we're actually not going to go that direction.
Mhm.
We're gonna do this instead.
Right.
But still, it's something to learn and something to experience and something to grow from. So, yeah.
That's right. And I mean, I look back on I've had, big changes in my life. I'm a person I'm currently been married for 11 years. I've gone through divorce. That was a huge change.
Yeah.
That was a difficult change.
Yeah.
There's so much pain in that. And um, part of it is just what you're experiencing. Part of it is letting go of people's expectations for you
Hmm.
and expectations for yourself,
Yeah.
disappointments, pain. I mean, all of that's kind of shuffled in there.
Right.
And yet, from that can also spring a newness and a healing. I
Mm.
mean, that's definitely part of change too, the healing
Yeah.
that happens in us. You know, no one goes through life unscathed.
Yeah.
We're all going to be carved up by something,
Hmm.
whether it's by our own hand or at the hand of someone else, or just by situations or circumstances.
Right.
And it's how we navigate life through that
Yeah.
because, I don't feel I have the most inspiring life story of the world, but I mean, I've been around some amazing, inspiring life stories of people who've
Mhm.
gone through change. One of my husband Jeff and I's favorite things to do on a Friday night is to go to the healing house.
Yeah.
And we get to watch these incredible lives being transformed before our eyes. And, one of my great heroes is Bobby Joe Reed.
Yeah.
And the change that happens in our life, and that's brought about change in other people's lives.
Right.
It's brought about change in the part of the city that she lives in.
Yeah.
I mean, the ripples go on and on and on. Another great hero of mine, Mindy Corporation, I sat in with her just a few days ago at a training that she was doing for her leaders for 7 days. You watch the change and the ripples that she has
Yeah.
and the things that she's gone through. And, sometimes we we let go of control and allow things to change us that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to take control and say, I am going to change, but it's going to be in a good way, in a positive way, because that's the way that God wants me to go. That's the way that God's leading me to be.
Mm.
And so it's not like we never have control. We do have a lot of control in how we receive things. I could have never come out of a divorce and just sat around and
Mhm.
been embittered and hurt and in pain and
Mhm.
just stayed in that place.
Mhm.
That wouldn't have been healthy, obviously. It wouldn't have helped my life. It wouldn't have brought me joy. It wouldn't have been helpful for my family,
Mhm.
on and on and on. There's things that we need to have control about. So we need to have forgiveness.
Mm.
We need to have um, the healing that needs to take place for God to say, I'm going to get you through this. I'm with you. I'm walking with you.
Right.
I'm not going to leave you nor forsake you.
Right.
I'm with you. Um, Sometimes I've shared this, and I don't think that I've ever shared it with you, but many years ago, when I was going through that time, I bought this ring for myself that I wear. I used to wear it on this hand, but when I got
Uh-huh.
married, I moved it over. And this ring makes a cross and it has three bands. And when I saw it, it reminded me, of course, of Christ
Yeah.
and Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Right.
And I bought that ring after all I had gone through in a divorce, which we don't have enough time here today,
Yeah.
um, to remind me of the one who would never forsake me or leave me,
Yeah.
and that I was his. I belonged to him, and I had his complete total love. And that was one of the most healing things I could have done for myself, just to have that reminder every day, wearing it, looking at it, and I still think of it when I look at this ring.
Yeah.
I remember my covenant with God and his with me, that I love you. I love you because I love you. That's something I tell my granddaughter all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I love you because I love you. And it's not based on performance. It's not based on anything except for the fact that I love you
Yeah.
and I'm with you. um, I will heal you, which he has. And it's just been I think it's beneficial to remember that we have some control in that, in our
Right.
change,
Right.
and we can make it for the better, and we
Right.
can move in a good, healthy, healing direction.
Yeah. And I'm just going to repeat the scripture you shared to we can be strong and courageous
Mhm.
because God is present in all that we encounter and everything that
Absolutely.
comes our way and every change that we need to go through, to navigate, to learn from, to embrace.
Right.
Yeah, and to be present in. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Michelle. Good, good words. So I'll say it again, change is good, change is hard,
Yes.
but we can learn so much through it. And so we'll take it. We'll embrace the change and we'll be all right through it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll celebrate it probably in a couple months. We're still navigating right now.
Working our way up.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for being here on the
Thanks for
podcast.
having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is the What Matters podcast. I'm Michelle Funk, your host, and we'll see you next time. Awesome. All right, change. It's
Change.
constant, but it's okay.
I wanted to end with, and we will arise.
I gotta have somebody do that one of these days. We will arise.
We will arise.
Oh, thanks. Time goes so quickly.
I
So
know.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so
And there's no clock in here, so
I
that's clever.
know, I
That's
know.
clever.
Very clever.